Hey guys, and welcome back to the cookie jar. Today we're doing the 9th recipe from the Fudge Cupcake Murder. We are actually making the fudge cupcakes. Now, that's these 2 pages, as well as these 2 pages with the fudge frosting. So we will be making both. For the fudge cupcakes, we are going to preheat the oven to 350. What you're going to need is 4 squares unsweetened baking chocolate, 1 ounce each, so basically 4 ounces, 1/4 cup of white sugar, 1/2 cup of raspberry syrup. For pancakes, I used Knott's Red Raspberry, 1 2/3 cups flour, 1 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 cup of butter, room temperature, 1 stick, 1/4 pound, 1 1/2 cups of white sugar, not a misprint, you'll use 1 3/4 cup sugar in all, 3 eggs, and 1/3 cup of milk. It also says to line a 12-cup muffin pan with double cupcake papers. Since this recipe makes 18 cupcakes, you can use an additional 6-cup muffin pan lined with double papers, or you can butter and flour an 8-inch square cake pan or the equivalent. For the fudge frosting, you're going to need 18 cupcakes or 12 cupcakes and 1 small cake, cooled to room temperature and ready to frost, 2 cups chocolate chips, a 12-ounce package, and 1 14-ounce can sweetened to condensed milk. It does say these cupcakes are even better if you cool them, cover them, and let them sit for several hours before frosting them. We have everything laid out in the kitchen. Let's get in there and get started. Here is everything we're going to need today. Okay, so the first thing it wants us to do is microwave the 4 ounces of chocolate. I'm just going to break these up a little bit more. We are adding in the raspberry syrup, the 1/2 cup of the raspberry syrup. And we're adding in the 1/4 cup of sugar. And I want this to go in the microwave for 1 minute on high. All right. So it's had its minute, and it says just to stir it up and then give it another minute. So it says to stir it up, and that is what we have right of that. Okay, so now it just says to let that cool to room temperature while we work on other things. So we have our 1 2/3 cup of flour, and to this we are adding the 1 1/2 teaspoons of baking powder and the 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and we're just going to get that mixed up. I'm just going to give it a quick little glancing through with a fork. It does say, by the way, the chocolate, it could have been done in a double boiler. It probably would have taken at least twice as long, and I feel like this worked just as well and quicker. And it says with an electric mixer or with a very strong arm, beat the butter and 1 1/2 cup sugar until light and fluffy, about 3 minutes with the mixer. An additional 2 if you're doing it by hand. So that's going to be the butter, or 1 stick of butter, and then our 1 1/2 cups of sugar. And we're just going to get that mixing together. I'm not sure if it qualifies as light and fluffy, but it's had its 3 minutes. It says to add the eggs 1 at a time, beating after each addition. Okay, so the next part, it says that we are going to add in approximately 1/3 of the flour and 1/3 of the milk. Get all that mixed in, then add the next 1/3 of each. Get that all mixed in, and then add the last 1/3 of each, mixing thoroughly with each addition. Apparently, it makes it smoother. So, it doesn't say you have to be exact, so that's good. Get all this scraped down again. So the next part, we're adding in the chocolate, and it says to test it before you add it in, to touch it, and if you don't have to pull your hand away, then it's warm enough that you can add it without cooking your eggs. That is literally what it says on our recipe. Hopefully it's ready to add and we can move on. So we're gonna let this cool down a wee bit more before we move on. Let's say at least probably another 5 minutes, and then we'll see where we're at. So it's probably been 20 or 30 minutes for this to finally cool down enough for me to touch it. Now we are just going to add it into the butter and everything else, our other mixture. Now that we have our chocolate mix, it says to let it rest for 5 minutes, stir it again, and then fill each cupcake paper 3/4 full. Personally, what I do is I like to take an ice cream scooper and measure it out this way. It's just a way to keep it a little bit neater and to try to kind of portion it out all the same. So, 5 minutes and we'll be right back. We have our 18 cupcake things with the double liners. That's what it wanted. And we're just gonna scoop them out, try to portion them even. Hopefully it works somewhat. Okay, so I'm pretty sure we're gonna have more cupcakes than it said. So I'm kind of shake them a little bit, but they're not really going anywhere. All right, now these are gonna go in the oven, so 350 for 20 minutes. Okay, so we have our cupcakes. They're out of the oven. They've been sitting for about 10 minutes. And now we're gonna get started on our frosting. Now we've got our boiling water in our bottom of the double boiler. It's simmering. So for this, we're just going to add our 2 cups of chocolate chips on top. And we are going to get these melted. Okay, now we're just going to add in the can of sweetened condensed milk. Mixed in, and it says to cook it for approximately 2 minutes. Okay, so it's been 2 minutes, but it's not spreading consistency. I'm not sure what I should do with this. I'm gonna take it off the heat and hope it thickens up a little bit once it's not so wet. So this is the icing it had us make, which, I'm sorry, this is not gonna frost very well. You might be able to dip it and have it maybe stay on. This is more of a ganache than an icing to me. It is definitely not gonna hold a shape like that unless we add some powdered sugar to it. So I'm going to try icing one of them, and then we might just have to add some powdered sugar to stiffen this up. So let's try to move this a little bit around. If you follow the recipe guideline, your cupcakes are going to end up looking something a little like these guys. We are finally done. It looks nothing like the one on the cover. It doesn't. Why they had us do 2 wrappers, I'm still not sure, other than to make it neater. So I don't know how you eat your cupcakes. I've always been a fan of the sandwich. Make you a little finger dance. They're very fudgy, they're very heavy, very chocolatey. Ooh, and on that tail end, you get that hit of that raspberry syrup, which I think it was Boyd that was trying to get her to make them like his mother, if I remember right. But he couldn't remember what was in them. And the recipe from the mom just labeled secret ingredient. And Hannah eventually realized from the jars in the basement that it was the raspberry syrup. But at one point, while he was describing them to Hannah, he said that they tasted like Black Forest. They reminded him of the Black Forest, which would be cherry, not raspberry. But the first initial few bites are fudge and chocolate. Chocolate! Pow! But now that I've eaten a couple bites and stopped eating, that Black Forest, that raspberry, it's coming through on my taste buds. It's a good little leftover feeling in my mouth. Next little dance happens. I like these. Like I said at the end of the last video, I've made these before. I knew they were good. I knew they were. So, I would definitely, the only thing I can say is when I made them, and I dipped them, and it didn't seem like enough. So I went back and I tried to add a little bit more to try to make them look more like the cover of the book. That, I think, might have been a mistake, trying to use more icing than what we needed. I think it was a little too much icing, but I've never been a big icing person, so it might just be me. The last actual recipe in this book that we're making is the 10th recipe. It's called the Apple Orchard Bars. And obviously it's a cookie bar kind of deal. I think this is the last book that ends in a bar recipe, which I was kind of sad about. I thought that was a really cute way to end the books. But yes, so if you are interested in the Apple Orchard Bars, join us next week. Bye guys, have a good one.